Now I would like to welcome Valerie Larco. She's an artist specializing in landscapes of the urban fringe. And if you don't follow her already, go check her work out on Instagram because it's amazing. She's been creating works on location for over 35 years. Her paintings have been exhibited at the Susquehanna Art Museum in Pennsylvania, the Bronx Museum in New York, Morris Museum in New Jersey, Hunter Dunn Art Museum, New Jersey, and the New Jersey State Museum, among others, and has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, ArtNet News. We could just keep going about Valerie's accolades. She's an expert in developing collector relationships with her work. I've seen a talk of hers before, and it is very enlightening. With that, I will hand it over to Valerie. Thank you very much, Valerie, for joining us.
I'm happy to be here today, and thank you all for tuning in. And I really love talking about this topic because I feel strongly that if I can do it, you can do it. I don't have any special skills other than I'm a painter and I've worked at it a long time. But as far as the building a collector base, it's something I learned and taught myself. As they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And I don't come for money. So I had to figure out how I was going to make a living and still be able to paint. And because I paint from life, I needed my daytime hours free to do what I love. So if I had a full-time daytime job, I never would be able to do what I do. So I figured it out. First, I started waitressing, and then I moved into figuring out how to sell my work. So let's move right in. I got a lot of notes and a lot of stuff to cover. I'm going to start with the very first thing. This is definitely the DIY way of building an art career. Okay, the first thing is don't be shy. Tell people what you do. When someone asks, I tell them I'm an artist. And if they seem interested, I go into my elevator speech, which is just a few sentences about what I paint. If they're still paying attention and it's appropriate, I show them a postcard of one of my paintings. I always carried some postcards in my pocketbook. I never leave home without them. And I'm talking postcards, not business cards. Business cards are too small. And I always have multiple images. I always get, new paintings, and I put paintings on the back of the cards too, so that people turn them over and go, oh, there's another one of what you do. Now, why are these so important? They're powerful. I know this seems bizarre, but I've gotten more sales because of postcards than maybe any other way. So let me give you a for instance. And what is on the postcard before I get any further into my stories is my information, my phone number, my cell number, my website, my social media, Instagram. I put all my information there to make it easy for somebody to reach me. And before I get into the power of the postcard and tell you a story, I want to say one other thing that's really important. If you don't have a website, you need one. Every artist needs a website. Now I know everybody thinks Facebook, Instagram, I don't need one. No, you need one. Your website is your portfolio. It shows what you do, who you are, the artist statements, pictures of you. Really, if people want to know more about you, you need a website. And if you want to sell your artwork, people are going to want to know more about you, so you need a website. So I just want to get that out of the way. And on the front of the postcard, I have my name and my website, not just on the back. Because if somebody slaps this on their desk or on the refrigerator as refrigerator art, I want to make sure they know it's me and that I have a website. So just keep those pointers in mind. So a number of years ago, I'm going to say it's at least 12, something like that, I had to go to an ENT doctor. I went, Dr. Ross, great doctor, and he asked me what I do. I get asked this all the time. I bet you do too. So I say, I'm an artist, and he seems interested. So I whip out a couple of postcards, and he says, can I keep these? And I say, absolutely. Now, it took a while. Remember, building a collector base is a marathon. It's not a sprint, but it took a while. But I made sure, oops, are you still there? I made sure, have I lost you, Jack? Oh, there you are. I made sure that I kept in touch with him. After I gave him my card, I made sure I sent him cards to his job. He started showing up at my art exhibition. He even came all the way to New Jersey when I had a solo show, that one at the Mars Museum. It was a mid-career survey show. He came. And then about 5 years after following me, he contacted me via email and said, I'm ready to buy. He came to my studio. He bought over $20,000 worth of artwork in one shot. And then he went on to buy several other paintings after that. This all happened because of a postcard. And this is something you really need to remember. Don't leave home without some postcards. Business cards are too small. People lose them, they throw them out. And even I know a lot of postcards will wind in the garbage. It doesn't matter. You don't need everyone to buy your art. You just need some people to buy your art who love you and will continue to buy from you. Another interesting point is the people who are most likely to buy your art are people who've already bought your art. I have multiple collectors who own anywhere from 5 to 15 of my artworks. I have a couple of really good collectors who say, oh, Valerie, I can't possibly buy another one. Sure enough, I have a show, they buy another painting. So let me continue after that. Oh, very important too, along with the business card thing. All right, so I give the people my postcard, right? But then I always ask, can I have your card, your business card? The reason I do this is I want to add them to my mailing list. And if I don't have their email, the chances that they're going to contact me are not that high. Only a few people will go out of their way to email me. But if I say, can I have your business card and can I add you to my mailing list, I have gotten something extremely valuable, which can lead to future sales. So I always make sure I ask for a business card. Now, some people will say, I don't have one. You could say, well, you know, what's your email address? But it's okay if they don't seem to want to be on your email list. Because remember this too, you only want people on your email list who want to be there. Otherwise, you're wasting their time and yours. So that's that. Okay. So I went into how it's a marathon, not a sprint. But if you are consistent, trust me, your efforts will pay off. They have certainly for me. So let's go on to the next thing. I'm always asked, Valerie, where do you find collectors? As if there's some weird breed in some foreign country, I have to hunt them down. No, collectors are everywhere. You just don't realize it. Your friends and family can become some of your best collectors. Once someone buys a painting, as I said, there's a high probability that they'll go on to buy a second one because they love your work. They wouldn't have bought one in the first place if they didn't. I'm going to tell you another little story. I'm also always on the lookout for collectors. This one particular interesting tidbit, I read about this collector in the Bronx. He collected graffiti art and he loved Bronx art and he had a Bronx business. So I thought, what the hey, I should just reach out to him. I looked up the address for his business. It was a meat packing company in the Bronx. And I just happened to have had a solo show at the time at the Bronx Museum. There's a catalog. I mailed him a catalog with a personal note. He went on to buy 3 paintings from it. He never would have known who I was if I hadn't reached out. So don't be afraid to reach out. Yes, rejection's going to happen. Not everybody's going to buy. Even people who say they're going to buy aren't going to buy. But if you're consistent and you keep at it, you will sell, and you'll sell multiple pieces and you'll be able to help support yourself. And really, that's the bottom line. I'm not so worried about being in the best collections. You know, I don't even know how to do that. But what I know I need to do is make enough money so I can pay my rent and pay for my art supplies. So that's what I focus on, what I can do. The big airy stuff, hey, if that happens, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. I still get to paint. Okay, here's another part of this. Think of yourself as running a small business. What does that mean? It means that you're providing a service, not just a piece of artwork. Service means helping a collector with framing, delivery, installing, and sometimes just loaning a piece to see if it's a good fit. I have to tell you, and I've been doing this for decades, If somebody seems interested, I say, oh, do you want to try it out? And a lot of times they'll say yes. If they say no, they're not really interested, fine, you move on. But if they say yes, I can't tell you, almost every single time I have loaned a painting to somebody, they have purchased it. A few times they didn't, and that's okay. But the majority of people who have taken on a loaner wind up becoming a collector. They fall in love with it. So let me just go over this. Okay, so another thing to keep in mind is once you have people who are interested, they're on your mailing list, you know, maybe they've bought something, maybe they haven't yet, you have to keep them informed. And that's where your mailing list is even more important than your social media, because you can tell people, oh, here's my latest press. Here's my latest show. Oh, I'm having an open studio. I don't necessarily want to put out there, because my studio is in the building where I live. I don't want to put that all out on social media, you know, but with a mailing list, these are people who really care about what I do and want to know more about what I do. So I can tell them, I'm having an open studio this weekend. If you can't make it that one day, you can come by appointment. Open studios are a very good way to get people into your studio to see what you have without a commitment, so they don't feel stressed out. I always make sure I have lots of food and drinks and make everybody feel comfortable. I really love open studios. Even when I have a solo show for a museum or for a gallery, I like to do an open studio preview. And my collectors love getting to see the work before the rest of the world does. It feels like an insider thing. And this way, they can get first dibs. I often sell work before a show even opens. And there's nothing better than going into your show and seeing some red dots before you've even been open that long. So open studios are great, but so is having a mailing list that you have built over time of people who love your work. And I'm going to say one more thing about mailing lists before I move on. You do not want to buy a mailing list. You do not want to get somebody else's mailing list. I've had people say, Valerie, can I have your mailing list? And I say, hey, I can't give you my mailing list because these people signed up for my mailing list. They don't even know you. And then they'd look down on me for giving out their personal information. So I'm not going to do that. And B, even if I was silly enough to give somebody my mailing list, it would do no good for them. They're interested in my work. We all have to find our own audience. That's why building your personal mailing list is solid gold in having a career and a sales base, a collector base. Okay, moving right along. Oh, and another thing, when I have to borrow artwork back, say I have a museum show and I need to borrow work back, I've had to do this several times. I always give the person, or offer anyway, a loaner painting. You know, I'm taking this out of your living room. It's right over your fireplace. Do you want a blank space for 2 months? Maybe not. So I will always offer, this is about being full service too. I will always offer a loaner painting. A lot of times the loaner painting sells too. And not always to the person who I loaned it to. Sometimes I had this one time where somebody was bringing a painting back to me after it had been a loaner, but she went and had lunch with somebody else who loved my work. And he said to her as they're at lunch, God, I really should get another Valerie Larco. And she goes, I have one in my car. After lunch, they went out to the car. She showed him the painting and he bought it right like that. My friend called me up and said, I'm not bringing your painting back. You know, my other friend is buying it from you. It was great. Had good taste too. It's good painting. Okay. Yeah. And if you're going to give a loaner painting, give a darn good one. Don't give something that's in the back of your closet. You know, always put your best foot forward. That's really important too. All right. Now we're going to move on to pricing. It's good to have paintings in different price points. It's called the pyramid of pricing. I learned this from my girlfriend, Diana. And what that means is that you want to have everything from small, less expensive works to very big, you know, bold, powerful works. And in my case, the big works are pricey. They take me 2 to 3 months to do on location. They're labor intensive. And then, as you know, when you sell through a gallery, they get 50% and everybody wants a discount. So you got to take all that into account. But I love painting big, and the big paintings get me the exhibition. but the small paintings pay my bills. So let me give you a for instance. In the winter, I do gouache and watercolors in my car, small paintings that are less expensive and quicker to do. Those are, you know, between real small ones are like 500 up to about 1,400 framed for the bigger ones. But this is a lot less expensive than a $20,000 painting. Recently, I was in a group show at Basin Gallery in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And as a joke, one of the gallery owners handed me a little 2-inch by 3-inch canvas. And she said, Valerie, can you paint something this small so that Jamie and I can afford you? She meant it purely as a joke. But I don't back down from a challenge. So I said, yeah, give it to me. And she goes, well, I have 5 of them. I said, give them all to me. I went home and painted 5 miniatures. I had never painted a miniature that small in my life. And let me tell you, it's a lot harder in the style that I work, which is detailed, to paint a 2 by 3-inch painting than to paint a 16 by 20-inch painting. But anyway, so here I'm just going to show you a quick little miniature. After I did those 5, I went and bought some more. This is a 3-inch by 3-inch, which is actually a little bit easier. And then I bought these cute little, because you can't frame anything that small. I asked my framer, he goes, we lose a finger, Val, if we try to cut for molding that small. But guess what? I did about, I don't know, 13 of these. I sold almost all of them because we were in a little holiday show. And I never expected to, but you know, I walked away from a holiday show not thinking I'm not going to make much money with a check for $1,500. Now that'll pay some bills, right? And the gallery got their commission and everybody was happy. The other thing I do, which aren't as expensive as the big ones, these are part of my Sign of the Times, a series of mini billboard paintings I've done. This one is 10 inches by 8 inches. And these are very detailed. That's who I am. So even if they're small, but that painting is 2,200. And then the next size is 2,400. I do 10 by 10s too. Sold like hotcakes at this show. There were the big, bold paintings that drew everybody in. I had 12 of these billboard paintings. They're really not minis, but these billboard sold 8 out of 12. Some were walk-ins, some were my own collectors. Some were people following me on Instagram who I had never met, came to the show with the intent of buying a painting from me, which is pretty exciting. Okay, so we've gotten to how to have pricing. So these little mini ones are $325. These are the cheapest thing I have. Then there's the ones that are like, I have some other small ones. These are like 800. And then I've got the work on paper, and then I've got the mini billboards, then I got the really pricey things. The other thing I have are some works on paper. This is actually an oil on oil paper. It was a study for my large painting. For all my large paintings, I do studies. And what I do in the winter is I go back and finish those studies. They're very loose in the beginning, but because the big paintings take me so long to do, and most people don't have that kind of space or money, myself included, finishing the studies, I sell so many of these studies because they're like $3,000 or $4,000. And they're just as detailed as the big ones. They're just a smaller version, a mini me. So that's how I deal with the pyramid of sales. Another thing you could do, I don't do this that often, is G-clay prints. A lot of people do ask me about that. Occasionally I do one, usually for a specific reason, but that's another way to have the pyramid of sales. Also, if you draw, I sketch, but nothing great. I'm really more of a painter, but that's another thing. If you have more finished sketches, pyramid of pricing. Okay, let me move on. All right, this is a very important thing that everybody needs to consider. Discounts. I hate discounts. Let me make that perfectly clear. I really don't like them. However, they're part of the art world. But remember this. You do not want to give giant discounts out of your studio, because if you do, why would anybody buy from the galleries that you work with? They'd have no reason. They'd only go to you, in which case, if you don't sell at galleries, you don't have a gallery. So be careful with discounts. You can easily give everybody and their brother a 10% discount because every gallery will do that. So that's perfectly fine. And you also, I have what I call the friends and family discount, which is 20%, which a gallery will give a better collector, and I will too. But Beyond that, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If somebody thinks they can get this great price, they won't buy ever from a gallery. So let me just get into one more thing, because I want to make sure I get this right. Oh, this was my other point. If your painting is worth $1,000 in a gallery, it's still worth $1,000 in your studio. You're doing all the work to sell it. So remember that. Keep your values consistent and believe in yourself. And that will pay off. So that's just a little point there. Back to the one more quick thing. I had a painting in a lobby. I got contacted. They said, we're doing this lobby thing in Manhattan. Would you like to be in it? We're going to keep your work for 6 months and we're going to pay you $500 as a rental fee, which I thought, hey, better there than in my studio, and I get $500. Well, this guy, Mitch was his first name. It turns out he's kind of a big guy out in Silicon Valley. And he was in a meeting in that building. He contacted me and he said, wow, I'm really interested in what you do and blah, blah, blah. And it was right before the pandemic. You can guess he didn't come back to New York from California for a long time. So I offered to do a studio visit. It never happened, but I did mail him back to the catalog. I did say, do you want me to mail you a couple of catalogs? This way I have his address and I keep the conversation going. He loved the catalogs, but never came to my studio. He didn't even come to New York. Finally, I was having a show recently, last January, at Sugarlift Gallery in Manhattan, and I hadn't heard from him all. I could tell he was opening my MailChimp. We'll get into MailChimp in a minute. So that's a good thing. I could tell he was still interested, but you know, he wasn't really clicking on the links. So I just sent him a personal email and said, you know, I have a very nice catalog to my latest show. Are you still interested in my work? If you are, I'll mail you a catalog. I didn't have a lot of catalogs, so I couldn't just send them automatically. So I sent it to him. He sends me a photo back of him holding my catalog. He liked it so much. And he said, I'm ready to buy. What's still available? He bought the largest painting out of the show. That relationship took 4 years to solidify, but it was a $22,000 painting. Just leave that there. So remember to follow up. That is the point of that. Don't assume that somebody, oh, you haven't heard from them, they changed their mind, they don't want to hear from you, you know, oh, woe is me. We got plenty of, oh, woe is me, but try not to do that. Just remember to follow up. And I'm very good at the follow-up. And look, what's the worst that could happen? They say they're not interested anymore. Better I know that so I don't waste my time going after them. And a lot of times you'll get a positive response, not that one. So that was that story. Let me just, oh, here's another thing. Some people are really picky about where they exhibit their artwork. I know that feeling. They're not worthy of this lobby. That's not that good. Do I want my stuff to be in the lobby of a condominium? You might. I did a show in a lobby in Jersey City because a good friend of mine said, I'm curating it. Would you do this? The show was awful. Hurricane Sandy hit. We had to postpone the opening. I had to bring clamp lights and extension cords because the lighting was so bad, but I did it. And eventually we had the opening. Well, I met one really great guy there. He was the senior editor for New Jersey Monthly Magazine. And he wrote an article about me. I went on to get 2 of my best collectors from that article. They came after me. They read the article. One guy bought, oh God, I think 20 small paintings, and the other guy bought at least a dozen. So even bad shows can lead to things. My point is, get the work out there. Don't say, oh, if it's not in the best place, I don't want it. If it's not this, not, no. What you don't want is a lot of work sitting in your studio and nobody knows you exist. So the more you get it out there, the better off you are. That's part of building a collector base. Okay, moving right along. The power of thank you. Be willing to give back. Help with advice whenever you can. Your collectors are important to you, so be sure to make them feel appreciated. This ain't a one-way street. It has to be a two-way street. My better collectors always get free catalogs mailed to them with a personal note from me. Remember this, People buy artwork from people they like. Be that person they're going to like, not that person who's, whiny, I need from you, I'm not willing to give back. Remember, it's a two-way street. Most of my collectors become my friends. And what's really cool about that is I know where 98% of my paintings are to this day. Most artists don't know that. But because I become friends with my collectors and I'm always there to help them, whether it's advice on how to lighten something or about something completely different, I'm there for them. They're there for me, I'm there for them. That's part of being a full service business and building good relationships, not, me relationships. All right, newsletters and social media. Remember, you need to get your stuff out there. I already talked about, it doesn't matter if a show is perfect, it's better than sitting in your studio. Social media has opened up some wonderful opportunities for artists, and I take advantage of those opportunities. Instagram in particular, the algorithm sucks right now, such is life. Not as many people see my posts as they used to. Yeah, I've tried Reels, I've tried this, and I'm gonna keep on trying. But I don't need everybody to know me and love me. I just need my audience. So recently, I did my first ever, here's my third ever, painting on an aluminum panel. Another small one, it's gonna be in the lower part of the pyramid. I'm experimenting with this winter. The first one I ever did, I put on Instagram. One of my collectors, she must own close to 10 paintings of mine, saw it and said, I want it. I posted it, I went to sleep the next morning. She's like, Valerie, contact me. And she bought it. It was great. And it helped pay my bills because I was actually really tight on money. I'm like, oh my God, it's like a godsend. Anyway, Instagram is so great. You can reach more people. Even if you're not getting the high numbers you used to, think how many more people saw your work than if it just sat in your studio. I also have had good luck with Facebook. I've had people buy my work because of Facebook. Not everybody, but you don't need everybody. So remember that social media can really help you. Just try and be consistent. Don't get upset if you don't get the numbers you want. You're still getting to a lot more people than you could any other way. I even got a museum show because of Instagram. This is back to the thank you line. It all connects. A curator at a museum, the Susquehanna Art Museum in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, contacted me. I think she had seen my work at a show, probably 2017. She posted on Instagram and tagged me. So whenever anybody posts me, they don't have to do that. I always thank them, always thank them. So I just said, thanks for the shout out, or thanks for sharing it. One of those are my standard. And she wrote me back right in the same message, said, here's my email, contact me. You betcha I did. And I sent her a catalog. I said, would you like a museum catalog from the Bronx Museum? She said, yes. I sent that to her. And then she said, do you do drawings? She wound up putting me in a group show. And then she returned the sketchbooks to me in person, which I wasn't expecting. I mailed them there. She was seeing if I had the goods. By the time she left my studio, she had offered me a solo show. It's all good. But if I hadn't said thank you, she would have moved on to something else. You gotta be in it and really try to be aware and give back. And once again, the power of thank you. Okay, now the power of a catalog. Yes, there are a lot of powerful things here. So let me show you, I showed you the Bronx Museum one. This is the one I created for the Susquehanna Art Museum. It's called Hidden City. Very nice catalog. So I told the curator that I would like to do a catalog, and she said, oh, we don't have the money for that, blah, blah, blah. I said, that's okay. I'll raise the money myself. Now, remember, not everybody might buy your paintings for a variety of reasons, but they might want to support you in other ways. So one of the things I do, and I've done it from the very first solo museum show I had when I was 36 at the State Museum in Trenton, New Jersey, I raised money for that catalog. I didn't have the money, but I also knew it was important. So what I did the first time I did this is everybody who put in a certain amount, I think it was $500 or whatever, it might have even been less than that, they got a raffle ticket. And when all of it was done and I had gotten all the donations, and I have always hit my mark with these things, I just picked out of a hat the name of somebody who had donated, and they got a free painting. Not a print, but a free painting. Recently, for the Susquehanna Art Museum, I did have some G-clays. I had made one for a graffiti writer friend, and I wanted to give him a G-clay of his painting in my painting, so to speak, a painting in a painting. And I had some left over because, you know, if you're going to make one G-clay, you might as well make a couple because it's cheaper that way. So I thought, anybody who gives me $500 for the Susquehanna Art Museum will get a signed limited edition, there were only 7 of them, G-clay print. People were thrilled. And a lot of people gave me $500. As a matter of fact, so many people gave me money, I wound up having more than I needed and got a bunch of catalogs printed. And I sign those catalogs, those extra catalogs, and I keep them in my car because remember, I paint on location. And when everybody seems interested, I just whip one out and hand it to them. I got a ton of them. Well, now I don't have so many, but they're my calling card. People love them. So anyway, this is one way to fund a museum catalog or any catalog if you're having an important show at a nonprofit. You can do fundraisers. I don't do GoFundMe. I don't expect people, my artist friends who don't have any more money than I do to support me. I do it very privately, and I go towards my better collectors who I know can afford to give me a few $100s. And if you have enough collectors like I do, this is how you fund a catalog. And some people didn't even want the print. They said, just take the money. It was all good. Okay, so that's how you can do that. And if you do raise money for a catalog, back to the thank you, remember to thank everybody in print in that catalog. And then make sure they all get signed copies after the fact. I always mail a couple of signed copies to everybody who donated. All right, that was a lot of information. I have no idea how long we've been doing this, but I'm gonna get to the closing, people. In the end, we all need to find our audience. I touched on this briefly, but it's really important. Somebody who likes my work is not gonna like your work and vice versa. And not everybody, as I said before. But if you follow these strategies, keep your work out there. Make sure people know you appreciate them when they buy something from you. Thank them. Keep them updated with newsletters. I use MailChimp. MailChimp is very good, or one of those, rather than just, and MailChimp is free if you don't have a giant list, and I don't. Mine's about 800 and something. I know that sounds large, but remember, I've been doing this a long time. So it's free, and I can see who opens my newsletter. I can see who clicks on my link. I can see who is really interested in what I'm doing. That is important information. So I do advise for your newsletter using something like MailChimp or Constant Comment. There may be others. Constant Comment, I think, was cost, so I went with MailChimp. And once you have the template down, it's so easy to just punch in new material each time. And by the way, I am no techie. I'm a Luddite, basically. I teach myself just enough to get by. So remember, you need to find your audience, and they're out there. There is an audience for every type of art. And with social media and building a mailing list, you can build a collector base of people who will love you, love your work, and support you, and will be cheering you on as you succeed. I'm ready for questions.
Thank you, Valerie. So please put any questions in the chat and we'll start going through them. We do have Anya Lee. Hi. So Anya's a figurative painter and muralist based in Winchester, Massachusetts, and they have a question. Essentially, it seems like somebody bought a painting and then got a divorce or is moving and needs a different size or a different content. You know, like let's say somebody needs a different size painting if they're moving houses and that one doesn't, the large painting doesn't fit anymore. And they come back to you and they say, can I do an exchange, I guess, is what the person
might be, I've never had that particular situation. I think an exchange is reasonable. So I would probably be inclined to do that. What I get instead is, do you want to buy your painting back? And we're talking paintings that are like from my art school days, decades old. And I just say, no, I can't afford to buy my paintings back. I just don't do that. I'm very polite about it. I'm very kind about it, but I can't afford to do that. However, if somebody just wanted to exchange a big painting for a small one, that I think I would be inclined to do.
Anya, does that help with the question?
Should I unmute?
Sure.
Yeah, it's happened a few times with me. It's like,
Wow.
and I just don't know what to do. Like, I guess you're saying a smaller one in lieu
Yeah,
of...
if it's a smaller one, it's fine. But if they want you to buy the painting back, you just say, I can't afford to do that. Sorry. Because
Yeah, they usually just want to like give it back and get like a new one.
If somebody wants to give me a painting back, I'll take that in a hot minute because there's somebody else who'll want to buy it. As long as they're not asking me to buy it back, I will. I've never had that happen. I did have one collector who, like I said, just bought another painting from me. She owns like at least 10. And at one point when she was downsizing, she thought she was going to have to give some of them to me. She couldn't fit them all, but she wound up fitting them all. And I said, fine, I'll take back whatever. I'm not going to buy it back, but I'm happy to take it back. And here's a very funny little story. One of my friends found one of my monoprints that I had donated to an auction in a thrift shop, basically. And she showed it to me. And it was for sale for $45. And the frame, which I did not frame it, the organization did, was worth more. And I said, could you buy that back for me? Because she was in Philadelphia and I wasn't. And so she did, and I got the piece back, and it's been in my studio. It's beautifully framed. And recently, I don't do giveaways as much as I used to. We can talk about that another time. But now somebody asked me if I would donate something. It's a place I've been teaching for a very long time. And I thought, I got that monoprint. Cost me $45 to get back. Fine, done, beautifully framed. So, you know, that's the only time I've ever bought anything of mine back.
Valerie,
Thank you.
I hope that helped.
Hear about so MailChimp. I know I'm thinking about this too. I have about 800 people on MailChimp, and MailChimp is now going down to 500 people for their free service. Starting in March. Do you have is it worth paying the like $20 a month or whatever they desire for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I did not know that because I've had it under 1,000. It was always 1,000.
Yeah,
so now that you're telling me this, and I'm just about to send out an e-blast because I have a bunch of stuff coming up in March. So I will pay it.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain things that are the cost of doing business, and the information I get from that is worth it.
And I will say, you know, to follow up what you're saying there, it's worth going into your MailChimp and looking at some of those like behind the scenes stuff of who's opening 100% of your emails.
Exactly.
Who's clicking on links and you know, I forget who some of those people are, but then a little Googling later and you can find out, you know, oh, this person's in a gallery. I should reach out to them. I haven't spoken to them in like 7 years. So, you know, the idea that like our art careers are long journeys and we constantly need to be researching, we constantly need to be remembering who's who. I think that's, you know, that's very important things to do. And I think another thing that Valerie reminds me of is that the last time I saw her speak, it reminded me that we're constantly meeting people and then sort of forgetting who they are, and maybe they'll wind up on a mailing list. But I've started since then using spreadsheets to keep track of people in the art world, because, you know, there's only so many collectors and so many gatekeepers that you end up meeting. So I've been recommending to start a spreadsheet of all the VIPs that you meet, and just keep that spreadsheet going and review it and go back to it, because, you know, I'm not going to keep all those people in my head. So you got to write them down somewhere.
And people leave too. That's the other thing. You know, people change jobs. You lose their email. You know, attrition does happen. But if you're constantly meeting new people and connecting with them and adding them, if they allow it, do not add somebody without asking them. It's not worth their time or yours anyway. But if you're constantly adding to your list with new people, that's fine. So what if somebody else leaves or they change jobs or you don't ever hear from them again? At that point, if they aren't keeping in contact with you, they're probably not that interested. So it's not a big deal.
So Valerie, so back to sales, somebody asks to elaborate on discounts. And so I know you say that you don't offer more than a 20% in your studio. Do you then like shuffle them towards something cheap? Like, let's say they see a big painting and they don't want to spend 20,000, then do you shuffle them towards something cheaper, or do you offer payment plans? Like,
oh, I'm a big fan of payment plans. Love payment plans, because once you get somebody to agree and they set up a payment plan, I got income coming in. Oh, I am a big fan of payment plans. I offer them all the time. Some people need them, some people don't. But I think payment plans are wonderful.
How do you normally break them down?
I say, well, it depends on the price of the painting. They have to give me a deposit up front that covers at least a payment or two and sales tax. I do have a tax ID number. Do not try to get away with not paying sales tax, people. It can bite you in the butt. I've never had a problem because I got a tax ID number decades ago, pretty early on in this process. So if you're going to sell privately, I mostly sell through galleries now, but I do sell some stuff privately. I always make sure I collect sales tax unless I'm shipping it out of state. Then you don't have to, but then you have to have them cover the shipping. So you've just got to negotiate all this right up front. Ask them what they can afford, tell them what you need. It usually isn't a problem.
What type
is there another part to that question? I'm sorry, did I miss another part to that question?
What type of deposit do you take?
I like to get at least $1,000 if it's a bigger painting, you know, and then they can pay in payments, usually whatever works for them.
So it's like 30% maybe? Or
yeah, it depends. It depends. I'm flexible. I have sort of believed that I have to work with people where they're at. Some people can afford more. Some people can't. A couple, I took $200 a month for 2.5 years. It didn't go through a gallery, but every month for 2.5 months, I got $200. That was fine with me. Paid my phone bill, my electric bill, you know. So I guess I tailor it to each particular situation. There is no hard and fast rules. If somebody wants something and they're unsure they can afford it, I do offer a payment plan. I do offer a discount up to 20%. Occasionally, because I do have some really great collectors, I have given a little bit more of a discount, but it's usually when I had a pressing need. Now, a few years ago, I needed to buy a new car. And because my income is unpredictable, I do teach part-time, but doesn't pay very much. But because my income is unpredictable, I knew I wanted to buy this car in cash. I know, it's hard to believe, right? And I was a little shy of the money I needed. So I had a really good collector and I knew some paintings she had always wanted. So I did offer her, and she went on to buy paintings after that without a discount. You know, so she was very happy to get the discount, but because she had never gotten a significant discount before, she never expected it again. But she got a bigger painting at a good price. I got $7,500 in cash that I really needed to close the gap on this car. And I was able to buy a car. The other thing I guess I should mention is I live pretty frugally. I'm a saver and I live frugally. I think those help sustain me as an artist too.
When doing a payment plan, do you give them the painting when they give you the deposit?
Yep, always do. Never been ripped off. Never. Nope. I want them to live with it and be happy from day one so that they feel encouraged to keep paying for it. And I think there was once where I did have to go after somebody and remind them, but eventually they paid up. Didn't matter.
So Victor has a question on a different note of loaning works to collectors or museums. Do you have any idea of what kind of rates? Is there like a standard rate or percentage of the work or?
No, I've never, when I loan somebody a painting, I don't expect payment. That's just a loaner. It's just to fill a space on a wall. And they're going to eventually get their painting back. So I never charge for that. That's just part of being full service and giving back. Like I said, it can't be a one-way street with your collectors. You have to be willing to give back. So I just do that as part of my service, and I deliver the painting and I pick it up. I just do that. As far as the one time I was paid, this dealer was decorating lobbies and she paid me $500 for 6 months. And I thought that was reasonable. I didn't mind that at all.
And Victor, I would say I have once dealt with a production company for films, and I believe they pay 10% of the price for a loan period. I know museums don't often pay it. That doesn't mean that as artists we shouldn't be asking. I think we should always ask to get paid, and if they say no, then they say no. But if you don't ask, they're definitely not going to give you money. But I think that 10%, at least in the entertainment industry, is their standard. How do you handle any damage done to your work at a gallery or other exhibition space? Have you ever had a painting damage?
I've never had that happen. I've been incredibly fortunate. If something gets a little scratched or something, oil paintings are pretty resilient. I'm basically an oil painter. I just, touch it up. Yeah, it's been a non-problem.
Yeah, I mean, I also function the same. Trying to also keep good relations with the gallery, which is this balance of, being an artist that wants, we keep wanting shows. And so you want to have good relationships, but you also need to advocate for yourself because no one else will do it. A lot of galleries should have insurance, right? But
oh, yes. Now, I ran a college art gallery for 14 years. And one woman had ceramics. I remember this distinctly. Thank God it wasn't me. But she opened the back of her trunk of her car and it smashed on the ground. One rolled right out. And I put it through insurance and she got paid. She didn't get paid the full amount because, they knew we took a commission. We didn't take a big commission. We were a nonprofit. But yeah, we had insurance. She got paid something for the work. Now, I could have been a jerk and said, well, you packed it badly, but I'm not like that. And I didn't have to tell the insurance company, well, she dropped it. I just said if it broke on our property, which was true. I didn't have to lie.
Yep. Jody says that she once had a gallery damage her drawing and they offered the full value of the work, which I think is, a proper thing for the gallery to do. And then she donated the drawing to the gallery. So that's, I guess it depends on how much the image is damaged and what's the,
right.
What's the backside there. All right, do we have any more questions? Happy to answer. Can you say how often do you have open studios?
It varies. I'll be honest with you. It depends how busy I am. But whenever I'm going to have an important show in the area, well, I guess mostly I show in the area anyway, I like to have an open studio before that. So right now I do have shows coming up, but they're in Europe, so I'm not going to do it, and they're group shows. But probably in the spring, if I have nothing else on my dance card for the rest of the year, other than these couple of group shows, I'm probably going to just do an open studio just to bring in traffic, remind people I exist. Here's the thing. You can create events even if you don't have any on your dance card. And they're just a good way to remind people that you're out there, you're making art. You can even send an email blast out if you don't have a show and say, hey, here's what's on the easel. Here's what I'm doing. Make a story. Share. It doesn't always have to be Your e-blasts don't always have to be you're having a show, come to my show. They can be, here's what's on the easel now. Here's some recent press I got. Here's something to look forward to in the fall, you know, stuff like that. But if I have absolutely nothing on my dance card, I will have an open studio just to create, you know, interest. And if I'm having a major show, I like to do a preview. I call it a preview. Come see the work ahead of time. People love that.
Here's also a question that doesn't really have to do with that. Your work is very recognizable. Do you sign your paintings? I've been thinking a lot about this because I was very anti-signing the front of my paintings.
Oh, of course I sign the front of my paintings.
And then I realized that that's such a key marketing thing. Yeah.
Yes, no matter how small, I sign them. If they're real minis, sign them on the back. Yeah, I unfortunately, I have occasionally sold a painting that I forgot to sign. Really bad, Valerie. And I owe those people, and they remember. So I have to go down to DC. This is one of my best collectors, the one I gave the bigger than usual discount so I could buy a car. And she said, Valerie, I have a couple. So I know at some point I'm going to go down there with my paints and sign them for her. Lovely. She's just one of the nicest people. And I will just enjoy hanging out with her and her husband.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Valerie. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. I really appreciate it.